Monday, happy lunchtime. And so we know we are meeting at lunchtime, so please feel free to enjoy your lunch. You have to share it with us if it's something really yummy. Um, but we really appreciate all of you. Lindsay and I appreciate all of you being here today and coming together for this important conversation about reflective practice. And so we are building this around a community inquiry from Ileana Perez from down south, where she would like to explore expanding reflective practice across the early childhood community. And we'll talk more about that. And so there are a few objectives that we have for our time together today. And so the first is to identify, to define what reflective practice is, what reflective supervision is, and together explore the possibilities within the community. And we also, we've invited Clarissa to share some of the statewide, and other participants will share statewide resources that support reflective practice. So that is the idea and the plan for our time together today. And so I will, and also a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Sam Rodriguez. I am with the Family Development Program. I am and I work in partnership with communities to support early childhood coalitions. And I'm so happy to have my partner, Ileana Perez, here with us this morning. And I will invite Lindsay Lopez, my co-facilitator, to share about herself.
Hey everyone, it's great to see you all. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lindsay and I'm a training and development consultant as well with UNM Family Development Program. And we are so lucky to be able to have the opportunity to serve as coaches to our early childhood coalitions and do all kinds of fun projects around the state and offer things like this virtual training opportunities. So with that, we'll move into our kind of transitional grounding activity. Is that okay, Sam?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, everyone, it is my favorite time of the year. Balloon Fiesta. Oh yeah, and fall. All of it. Autumn and Balloon Fiesta. And I was thinking about how um no matter how crazy the world gets, whether it's in our personal lives or professional lives or the world, one thing that's a really helpful constant to me is nature. Um, and with that, the seasons changing. And so we can rest assured that spring will come. A lot of people talk about this time of year as the slowing down season. So we have our abundant harvest at this time of year, and also we start to prepare to slow down a bit and spend some time with families. Sometimes family, and sometimes it doesn't seem like we slow down because we have so many holidays and things like that too. So, but I invite you to think about at this time of year what remains constant for you. What do you enjoy at this time of year? And something that I love to see in the morning when I'm taking my daughter to school is the balloons in the air. And it doesn't matter how much I have on my mind on a Monday morning during for a busy week, I can just take a moment when we're at a red light and see the balloons in the air, and it just fills my heart with joy and hope, but also is kind of a constant, right? Like we can expect at this time of year as we're gearing up towards Balloon Fiesta this coming weekend that in the Albuquerque area, we can see some awesome balloons. I know that we have some really fun balloon events all over the state too. And this is the time of year that we get to enjoy that. So I invite you to just take a moment to pause, look at this gorgeous picture of dawn and these colorful balloons, and just bring to mind what brings you hope or what remains as a constant for you, a grounding force? Just taking a moment to think of that. You might want to even take a breath. How often do we get time just to pause and take a deep breath? And sometimes it only takes just that second. I'll stop share. I hope you enjoyed those reflections and just taking a moment to ground as we begin our session. Sam, I'm going to pull up the presentation with the objective slide. Will that work? Great. Again, thank you for joining us today as we explore the value of reflective practice and imagine the possibilities. Sam mentioned some of our objectives today. So we hope to build a shared understanding of what reflective practice and supervision is. We'll just briefly mention that supervision piece, and we'll explore how reflective practice can support individual and team and community development and promote access to statewide resources that support reflective practice. So we'll have an opportunity to share some resources today with each other, as well as to kind of live in action create a Padlet resource for all of us. A quote that I think of a lot when we talk about the framework of reflective practice is that one sees clearly only with the heart. Anything else is invisible to the eye. So, just jumping into a really brief definition of what is reflective practice, what is all of this that we talk about? In some professions, we talk about it in the way of having reflective conversations, maybe even threading in motivational interviewing. That may have been something that you've heard in the past. Um, Reflective dialogue, mentorship, how do you structure that? Maybe even coaching. Um, but truly leaning into the framework of reflective practice, it's a framework in which we create space to talk about the feelings that go alongside the work or our caregiving journeys as those that love and care for New Mexico's youngest. The framework is relationship based. It's all about the relationship, and that is the power in reflective practice. We create collaborative relationships, and this supports our professional growth, both individually and within groups. So, reflective supervision, if you create a structure within an organization or community based structure, um, would have a framework of having individual opportunities for reflective supervision and discussions, and also group reflection. It is strengths based. We just really start with what's working and we celebrate the strengths and what's working alongside our journeys of working and caregiving. Builds capacity. I think that is like the biggest thing for me. It gives me an opportunity to kind of talk about the work or the feelings that go alongside of whatever I'm doing. And sometimes that can be heavy and it allows me to kind of put the heaviness down for a moment, take a breath, think about things, and then pick it back up and it doesn't feel so heavy afterwards. Or sometimes I can just let it go. That's the best part. Really lightens the load and it creates more capacity for me to be a better human being in my personal and professional relationships. So I can go on and I can continuously reflect and improve upon the quality of what I do in the work that I do. Gives us opportunity to create partnerships. We can explore and remain open and curious. And it's kind of fun to do that as we learn and listen to each other. It creates courageous spaces where we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable, um, and create validating spaces with each other. We use open ended reflective questioning, so that we can step into these courageous spaces to be vulnerable and lean into the awkward. Sometimes talk about the things that are hard or awkward to talk about. And it just creates a strength in what we do. And in the practice, in supervision or how we think about having reflective discussions, we refrain from suggestions, we refrain from judgment and bias. And it does help us identify challenges and barriers to move forward with goal making and also just bringing back that guidepost of feeling, allowing ourselves to feel, then thinking about it, reflecting, and then we can move to action. And it's more of an informed action. Reflective practice allows us to develop professional capacity so we have the experience. Then we can allow ourselves a pause and to reflect. And then we can move into planning. Would I do anything different about that situation? Or what is my next step or strategy in this situation? And then I can move forward to action and experience once again. So, some key concepts. Here we do not lead with what we know. We are only experts of ourselves, and in partnership with others that we work with, they are the experts of their children. They are the experts of their classroom. They are the experts of their, home visiting caseload or their early intervention caseload. Um, Community-based early childhood professionals are the experts on their community. So we do not lead with what we know. We're all in this together, this human experience learning together. And we rely on your expertise to know what's best for you and your community or the families you work with or your own family. Again, avoiding assumptions and judgments and leading with positive intent. That really takes so much pressure off of things. Instead of thinking about how someone is trying to sabotage me or why would they do this to me, we think about all of the different perspectives and maybe, wow, they did not mean to have this interaction or this particular situation happen, and that takes a lot of pressure off of me, at least, to then be able to have constructive communication with that person moving forward. It allows us an opportunity to plant seeds, to think about things versus nagging or suggestions. It allows us to just step into being open and curious. And so we'll talk a little bit about this later as well, but we will identify other training frameworks that reflective practice really integrates perfectly with, such as the fifth FAN, facilitated attuned interactions, through the Fussy Baby Network at Erickson Institute, Circle Security, and many other trainings that we've experienced even in New Mexico. Um, and it allows us to step into shared experiences as appropriate and really is embedded into infant early childhood mental health and allows us to think about takeaways. What is something that you can apply to what you're doing next, or what is something you learned from this discussion? And again, strengthen practice and capacity by strengthening relationships by Victor Bernstein. He's just a wonderful resource in reflective practice. So I'll stop share here. We also would like to give wonderful credit to a former um, coalition coordinator from San Miguel County. Her name was Macy. That particular coalition really stepped into diving into and engaging in the reflective practice model. So she gave left us with some tidbits of, what she really took away from the practice. And a couple that I'd love to share with you. Reflective practice is an opportunity to slow down and deconstruct something, a situation, an experience, a conversation, to better understand what happened, to see how I affected the situation and to see what my next steps are. I love even thinking about that in relationship to positive intent or perspective taking and thinking about where others might have been coming from as well. The benefit of reflective practice is that when you lose your bearings, it helps you to find them again. Oh, I really loved that, thinking about how it really can actually support with my own nervous system regulation. So many benefits. We can learn, think, grow, but also regulate ourselves in reflective discussions. Reflection enables us to stop and digest our experiences so that we can learn and grow from them. And just one more, if you feel supported, truly seen and heard, you are more available to others. This is called the parallel process. I just loved that notion of feeling fully supported by your team, by others that you interact with, by those that support me as a caregiver or parent as well. We appreciate those thoughts from Macy. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And I really appreciate you amplifying the work of Macy because it really is a good example of reflective practice moving at the community level and what it's helped mobilize and empower within that community. And so I think the revisit of reflective practice is helpful to us no matter where we are on our reflective journey, where you're at individually, with your team and at your community. I think it's always important to revisit these foundational concepts. So thank you for doing such a great job of that revisit, Lindsay. And Lindsay I have the honor and privilege of partnering with Lindsay, who supports our reflective supervision as a group at Family Development Program. And so I get to experience that at the group level and also individual level. And we'll talk more about the importance of each of those experiences and what they empower as we move through today. But at this time, I'd like to invite Ileana to share a little bit more about her journey, her reflective journey. And so Ileana Perez is this is a mouthful, her title, Rural Early Childhood Education Coalition Policy Coordinator. So thank you for being here with us this afternoon, and your willingness and courageousness to share your journey, your reflective journey. And so if you can start by sharing a little bit about your reflective experience, Ileana.
Thank you so much, Sam, for that beautiful introduction. And thank you, Lindsay. And I'm so grateful for everyone here. I just have an open heart right now for gratitude. So I love this. Thank you. So I was introduced to reflective supervision 2014 when I was working at LCDF, Early Head Start in Las Cruces. And so Jetson was my first reflective supervisor. And after that experience, I had other mentors in reflective supervision. And so I found how essential reflective practice is to practitioners that are in relationship based work, like home visitors, social workers, childcare providers, early interventionalists, teachers, therapists, doulas, and community health workers, anybody who is really involved in community and that interaction of energy that we carry. So anytime we are in the practice of giving, we need to find a moment to slow down, evaluate the purpose of our work, and find support in our practice. And that's so important. And it allows us to find a part of us that connects our well-being and the reflection of our work. So it's like that bridge. And so that's what I've learned and experienced throughout this process of reflective practice. And so having somebody with experience and a neutral perspective supports a view that you were unaware of, which I find so interesting. Like what Lindsay said, that deconstruction of that situation, or, what's going through your mind. And, it supports a view that you were totally unaware of, and it makes room for this professional growth. Right? It's like that, adding that little seed to the jardín that you have, like, growing, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize I'm growing some chives here." I'm gonna pick some of those. So, yeah, and with that, we want to preserve that integrity and that well-being of our practice and our work, and reflective supervision minimizes that burnout. It, addresses that self-care and lowers that high turnover for agencies and organizations. And it builds positive relationships with your team and people that we serve in the community. So I really am grateful for reflective supervision. And so with that, we have a lot of changes going on, especially in our world. And we put on that TV and we kind of just find to get lost in it. But imagine, like, what would it look like, as we work with each other as a community to take that time to stop and reflect, take that breath. And I know you all remember this. It's like leaves from a tree. Yeah, take that moment to breathe. Imagine those leaves going down that stream and those worries just floating away. And so when our mind isn't consumed with worries and that, deconstructive gunk, we're able to kind of sort our thoughts, then those solutions come in and that collaboration comes in. So that's why I'm so grateful for reflective practice. Thank you, Sam.
Well, thank you. And so you've talked a lot about what reflective practice empowers and your thought process. And it really sounds like your experience supports your awareness of what it empowers. And so it kind of feeds why you think reflective practice is important for your community. And so I'll invite you now to share a little bit about, well, is there anything else that you'd like to share about empowerment and what reflective practice empowers for you?
It also opens a door for learning. And I like, for example, it supports infant mental health. So when we have that openness and that curiosity of different perspectives, we kind of look into the most vulnerable that can't express themselves fully. So children. So it really grounds us into this practice of being aware and learning different perspectives, especially from children. So, and how you can share that with your counterparts in your team, and so that's one thing that I've learned so much about reflective practice.
So thank you.
Liana, I loved how you talked about it, how it's integrated into different professions. So one I wanted to point out is the history in which reflective practice is embedded into home visiting into our state. So that home visitors are one of the leaders in our early childhood ecosystem in the reflective practice model. And in fact, it's incorporated into the standards. So know that if you're a family member that engages in home visiting, that your home visitor engages in reflective practice in the state of New Mexico. Um, and then also you mentioned, you know, other professions, community health workers and early childhood education. And there are other models of reflection or coaching that is integrated into those other professions. And of course, early intervention as well. And of course, infant early childhood mental health. But I loved your take also on thinking about it as how it can impact the larger community, how these frameworks and these learnings and these guideposts can impact how we raise our little ones, how we impact our community, and can be taken further on. And this kind of not just the parallel process in which we talk about, but this larger, broader impact. I loved that. So thank you for highlighting that, Ileana.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate that. I
So
saw Katrina here.
yes, we saw her applause for the commentary. And so Ileana, if you could share a little bit about what you envision, the hope you have for your community and expanding reflective practice in your community.
Oh, yes. So I have this vision, this dream, and it's a shared vision. So it's not just mine. I feel like a lot of practitioners in early child, care see the same light at the end of the tunnel. So with that, I also invite Liz and Katrina to chime in too. So we have these new exciting opportunities for childcare and especially universal childcare. And with that, I kind of see reflective supervision as a shared meal. I want to bring, everybody has this like gift. Somebody can bring in the mac and cheese. Somebody can bring in, anything that can nourish our souls, right? So it is this collective that we empower within us. And if we bring that collective together, I can just envision the integrity of our work being sustained. And one of the things that we do see within childcare is a high turnover. And so emphasizing the importance of not just everybody, also with community health workers, with doulas, anytime that you have that energy exchange, um, we want to be able to look and take that moment and learn from each experience that we have. And so I envision, um, you know, practitioners like such as childcare providers staying longer, finding love within their work, not being burned out as much. And it's not just for childcare providers, it's also for doulas, it's also for our community health workers, our social workers especially that see, and try to transpire that secondhand trauma that we usually don't discuss. So it's kind of like us building a system together of support. And so that's my vision.
I really love the metaphor analogy of the kind of potluck that you described, and each of us bringing our favorite recipe, and equating that to the strengths that exist within the community. And so, thinking about what you've shared, and also like so you have this vision, and I know that you've kind of already taken some there's some mobility around this. So how are you getting yourself organized and working with community partners to move this forward?
Absolutely. So we all have a shared experience in our practice of work. And so it's really utilizing bringing those chapters that we've learned together and streamlining it for the growth of our ecosystem within our early childhood ecosystem. So especially with now with universal childcare, the push for home visiting and the push for promoting healthy development in children, we are going to need all boots on the ground. We have to roll up our sleeves and we all have to join in together. And one of the things is that we need to look into is our funding and strategies of ways of carrying out, this initiative because it's an initiative that's going to be carrying on to our grandbabies, to our godchildren and everybody else because we're getting old, y'all. We're getting let's just be real. We're getting a little older and we have to pass the torch to the youth, to are world changers. Cause so what, we have to build a substantial fire to keep going and lighting the way. Um, and so with that, we need to put our heads together as far as like, how would this look like when it's funded and the sustainability of it? How would it look like? What are the values that we want to carry on to each generation? And what is the sustainability that we look at when we're going to be implementing reflective practice throughout the ecosystem of early childhood?
So thank you. And so I know that you're kind of doing some outreach, and I really appreciate like you already doing the outreach to Liz and Katrina to explore them as resources, and exploring with Clarissa, the statewide resources that are available to support you through this journey as well. And so I really like that the mention of universal childcare as being one of the issues that is kind of statewide, and well, it is statewide. And so expansion, but transition, and how important reflective practice is in supporting transition, because it allows us to slow down when things are moving really fast and examine what's working, what's working really well, what could be improved, and explore the possibilities. And I think you're right on track that it supports retention, it supports worker burnout and work-life balance. Thank you for sharing that. And so that's really the inspiration for us coming together and us having this conversation. And so we'd like to take some time just to kind of absorb what Ileana just shared. But we would also like for you all to think about what are some of what has reflective, take just a moment to think about what has reflective practice empowered for you. Um, and if you haven't stepped into reflective practice yet, what would you be hopeful about? What are some of the things you'd be hopeful about in a reflective journey?
As we're thinking about that too, I would love to open this question to the group as well. Angie put in the chat. Oh, and someone already shared a really great resource. I love that. How can reflection help early childhood professionals imagine new ways of organizing ecosystems, linking childcare, pre-K, health, food, transportation, housing, and other family services more seamlessly? These are great questions for discussions and thoughts that Sam was giving us too. And Cassandra gave a link to, or is that a link or just bolded? Seeing the whole child in context. Cassandra, would you love to share a little bit more? And you can feel free to do so in the chat or come off mute. And if anyone else has some thoughts to what Sam mentioned or Angie's question, feel free to pop it in the chat or come off mute.
Lindsay, it makes me think of a program that Liz and I were supporting in Roswell, and they were a Head Start program. And we were there to help consult on some challenges that were happening in the classroom. And I was in that situation thinking, oh my God, these teachers are so overwhelmed trying to do so much with their classes. And I mean, potty training, the nutrition, they had their family planning activities, all of these things that they had to get done. But I realized in that situation more than my own, how important a team approach is. First of all, I feel like we were giving coaching, but I feel a lot of what we did was reflective supervision, because they really needed a space to unpack some of the things that they were going through, right? But what was really important to me is I thought about, God, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if every kid had a home visitor, and that home visitor was part of a village? So you know, they'd have monthly meetings where the home visitor and the childcare provider or the teacher or the therapist, the EI professionals all came together to figure out how to collectively support this family. Because I still feel like as important as home visiting is, and as important as, you know, high quality early education is, there's a big disconnect still. I see it. And if I see it, I know other people do. So I love being on this journey with you guys to try to figure out how to support early educators a little bit more, because everything that you guys already said, I'm in 100% agreement. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Thank you for that perspective and example and how you all supported. But then, gosh, the imagining, remaining open and curious, and thinking about the possibilities and exactly what she's referring to in the chat of like, how do we maybe in a better way connect these services and support that family and that little one. And with that too, like that kind of service coordination idea and how we can apply the reflective practice framework to that is also a thought of how can we design questions, or I'm sorry, conversations in community with family and community members and professionals using reflective practice guidestones, the guideposts and learnings. How do we think about what's already working? What are our areas of opportunity for growth? And what are some ways that we can collaborate, partner, and get there? And so those are ways that we can think about designing strategic discussions using the reflective practice framework in community when we talk about service coordination. So we've had some good ideas shared, and then also how we can lean into more reflective type of discussions. I hope that helps a little bit. And Cassandra put in the chat, reflection helps professionals move beyond seeing children in an isolated environments just in the classroom. We have home visiting here at our school that helps families with whatever they need. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. And that piece that you put earlier in the chat too, seeing the whole child in context, steps into perspective taking. And we can really think about the entire perspective and look at a child holistically versus just maybe that behavior or what's going on at that time. I'll turn it over to Ileana. She has her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. You know, this makes me think of an article I read, and it was in approaches to high risk care. And it had and it was during the time there were a lot of cases of heroin use in Chicago. And they had like this care unit. So you had the home visitor, the child care provider, and then you also had social workers and pediatricians. And it was integrative care to target these social problems and issues in the area. And so these huge elements and part of this coordination of care were partaking in meetings and specifically discussing like, okay, how can we strategize? And they were in constant communication with each other. And so this was like a long time. I'm all like, this was in the 80s, and some of you were being born at that time. But this is a concept that's like we've kind of, I guess, forgotten, or just we buried it a little bit deep and we forgot it. And so I would wonder, I'm open and curious to see how would this play out. Imagine if we had more integrative care models within our state to address some of the urgencies that are occurring right now.
Oh, well, Eliana, I think you're a great example of how, you know, leading this effort in your community and the being attuned to what is happening in your community right now with funding changes and the experience of some families within your community and all of the, you know, the ripple effect that they're feeling right now. And their willingness to access services. And how that is all playing out in your community. And so we'd love to hear more. And each of us have a unique experience with reflective practice. I'm also curious about dreams that you have about reflective practice, and and it may be outside of the early childhood realm. I know that I come to the table. I wish that reflective practice would have been a part of my work with behavioral health and child protective services. I think about how that would have helped me be more better equipped to support children and families. And I, because I love that work, but I also I got burnt out, and that's simply because it's not sustainable. And we also have Jose Gonzalez here from Early Childhood Education and Care Department. I don't know if you're in a position to share a little bit about your experience with reflective practice in the community health world.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I was taking a bite of my lunch.
Of course, sorry for interrupting.
Perfect timing, right? But no, thank you, Sam, for inviting me, and especially in such an important topic. But really, the experience working out in the community, a lot of my work, it's very community. My previous work was very community based, family and children oriented. A lot of times in the work that I did, it was an implementation of self-regulation interventions, and really assessing the social environmental interventions as well too, because in the work and the community that I supported, it was really having to take a step back and really assessing our individual being, our family or school or peer work or neighborhoods and our culture. So a lot of that reflective practice, we had to include all these different domains to really, really emphasize what the type of work is it that we're trying to engage with families and services, and really take into account that self-care, that self-regulation. Because and all of us know about trauma-informed care, but when it comes to the trauma system itself, I think we're dealing with families that have experienced high levels of traumatization. I'm sorry, children as well who have experienced and are navigating in very survival mode. And ourselves, we really position ourselves too in those levels as well too. So the reflective practice really helping navigate those tough cases, those tough situations, because when it can affect not just your interpersonal domain, but it can affect those other layers as well too. And to me, I'm a big advocate around the social environment and how that really emphasized the help, and really helping families regulate. It could be a child care provider, it could be a home visitor, it could be a community health worker. You have to have those skills and be equipped for the unexpected, because when you open the door to that home or when you do that home visit, you don't know what to expect on the other side. And that to me, it was really a wake-up call to ensure that we're also supporting staff, um, and emphasizing what does these situations, these scenarios mean to you? Because I know you mentioned, Sam, and it was beautifully said about burnout. And that happened to me as well too, just navigating the complexity of the cases. It was really hard. And even though we had our own reflection, our own system of practice in place, it was still really hard to navigate the complexity of a lot of these cases, because you could make what really, to me, something that really resonated and felt really disconnected with is that you would make one or two, 3 steps with a family, And next week you have to start from the beginning. And that was like, oh gosh, like, do we really have to start all over again with some of these things? Um, and a lot of that practice and conversation with my team, I almost felt like I had to do like a grief and loss type of intervention as well too, because I've done like grief and loss groups in the past, and there was so much unknown, and when there is so much unknown, consistency and sticking to routines and sticking to a plan can really help families either feel safe, feel oriented, or just feel disregarded. I know I'm jumping into different places, but that's how it really sometimes it really feels when you're doing this level of work, especially around reflective practice. And we had to be very mindful of things that we wanted to say to make sure that parents feel connected. I think we have to meet parents, children, families where they are, and not even though we are considered, all of us are professionals, but really slowing down and really get to the human level that families really need to feel connected, because that's even a part of the self-regulation piece that really helps you feel connected with the client, is that you're also a human, you're dealing with somebody's feelings as well to another human's needs. So that intersectionality, it really helps you resonate that, they're not alone, you're not alone. It could be a really wonderful, well-navigated chemistry. But it's just those cases that sometimes you just don't know the anticipation and the unexpected. So I almost felt like in practice within my former work, it was like a grief and loss, really just the anticipation that maybe this client is not going to engage, maybe this family might not qualify for this level of support, and you can be as empathetic as possible, but ultimately we want to make sure that families are also working with us, taking we're taking those steps together. um so yeah, it was really interesting just navigating those indicators. I hope that made sense. Sorry, it was.
It sure did make sense. And it makes me really appreciate, and it really kind of supports where Lindsay and I'd like to go. And I think one of the things Lindsay and I are quickly realizing that this isn't we don't have adequate time to really tap into this the way that we would really like to. And so we're really just scratching the surface with our conversation today. So we'll continue to explore how we can expand on this conversation. But it really it it speaks of supportive relationships, and it makes me think in terms of circle of security, the hands that hold the hands. And so when you help steady your coworker, your colleague, their state, and help them get organized, that they kind of internally know what to do, just like families know what to do when they get themselves organized. And so when we have the opportunity to be with another person and be supportive, that organization happens. And I think that's really what's transformative about reflective practice, is that understanding and the ripple effect that it has. And so expanding from the individual to the team, just like I talked about how our work with Lindsay and reflective supervision supports us as a team and the work that we do statewide. And that's felt by our statewide partners and our community partners. And it moves, the ripple effect continues. So with that, we do want to protect space to share the statewide resources that we have in this group. And I will first invite Clarissa Franco to share about senior program director of Project ECHO to share about the resources. And then we'll open it up to anyone else who would like to share as well.
Sounds good. Thank you. Oh, I had a bit of there we go. Thank you, Sam. I do want to say first and foremost, I've been in early childhood almost 20 years. And so it's so great to be in this space with all of you, right? Having had received reflective supervision in the past from one of the great mentors, Jackie Van Horn, and experiencing that right when supervising others, and what a huge blessing that was. And it was just such a great support, right? Because oftentimes when you are a supervisor or a director, leader of sorts, you often feel isolated or sometimes alone, right? In which your thoughts and feelings are. And so I just want to just say it's amazing what reflective supervision and practices can do to support those feelings. All right, so here I'm gonna wear my other hat with Project Echo and share a bit about a program that we currently have that is running now. And we also have Liz Martinez here. So as I share a bit about it, Liz, please feel free to chime in. Liz Martinez is the one of the co-facilitators of this particular program. And if possible, can I share my screen so I can share the flyer? And I'm assuming I have permissions. I haven't even checked yet, but just in case. Okay. Because I think it might be helpful to have it in the background as I'm, sharing information about this. Hopefully you are all seeing it. Yes. Thumbs up. Okay, great. So as Sam shared, this is one of the many statewide resources that are available. This is a program that we currently have launched, and it's running as we speak. And it's reflective practice in early care and education. This gives you some really great examples, right, of the parameters kind of around this program and the who. So early childhood providers who support teams working directly with young children and their families. I will say this for this particular program, not as much of that background and foundational piece around what is reflective practice. So the idea is that if you are joining this, right, you kind of have that knowledge, you have that information and that background. But the big piece of it here is that you are supporting others, right? And it is free, it's virtual. You will see there's a QR code there, and then I can also put the link in the chat. We have wonderful co-facilitators, Liz Martinez being one of them, and then Christina Riddle, who's out of Western New Mexico University and has also she does amazing work in many other spaces as well. What we love, I will say, about this particular program, if you join, is it's very much organic in nature, right? So the idea is people come from all over the state, you join in, our wonderful co-facilitators go through the reflective stance with you, right? And what does that look like? What does that practice look like? How do you share that within yourselves and others? And then they open it up to those that join, right? Is there a particular challenge or experience that you want to delve into with this whole group? And so that's where I'm saying it's very organic in nature. So people come from different backgrounds. They're in classroom settings. We have early interventionists. We have those that are in homes, right? And they're sharing an experience. And then you go into breakout rooms and you delve into that a bit more. And what's lovely again is we have facilitators here that have that background and experience, right? In supporting those that are supporting others. And as we know, sometimes challenging conversations might come up, feelings might come up for others, right? And experiences. And this is where it's so great to have each other as this community and then also our facilitators. And so far, wonderful feedback here. What I love the most about the feedback that we get from others is they appreciate having this safe space, right? You're all coming from different backgrounds and different type of education sectors that you work in, different experiences, but you're coming together and you're joining each other and you're sharing this safe space about what you might be experiencing, right? Out in the field with families, children, and even you're within your own team, right? Those that you work with as well. So wanted to share that. Again, here's some information. I can pop the information in the link. And I imagine, Liz, we would love to see you all there. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen in case there's any questions. Can see each other. All right. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. If there are any other resources that folks would like to pop into the chat, that would be awesome. I am also creating a Padlet as we speak that we'll share out with you all today, and also with our recording. Just some local reflective practice resources and one like national source, 0 to 3. So if there are any other really good resources out there that you'd like to share into the Padlet as we create something together, that would be great. I'm also going to share with you just an overall resource that we created for free and very low cost trainings for early childhood professionals. So if anyone has any other resources or you think of any later on, feel free to email me as well. I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you.
Well said, please share.
I don't have a resource, but maybe this could be a partnership opportunity, or I'll pitch this idea to Lindsay and Sam if you would be interested, and maybe we can talk offline more about this. But we're doing the health and wellness webinars every quarter on ACCD. I'm almost wondering if we should do a health and wellness webinar session on reflective practice. We usually have quite a not to brag, but we do have a great turnout of early childhood providers, care providers, community health workers, so across the board. So I'm almost wondering if we can explore something for the next quarter in the new year and doing a topic that really emphasizes on reflective practice.
Absolutely. That's what this is all about, envisioning the possibilities and strengthening the programs teams at every level. And so, Liz, we'd love to give you an opportunity to share as well. And so thank you so much for being here, Liz.
Thank you. So glad to be invited. And Clarissa, you did a great job of describing our program. We hope to see folks joining us. Let me lower my hand. I just wanted to here with the New Mexico Association for Infant Mental Health, we have some opportunities. And so I'm going to share my email. I'm looking for thinking partners around reflective supervision consultation. If anyone does have an interest in maybe moving forward, we're looking into something called pay it forward model, and for reflective supervision. And the goal behind that is to offer reflective supervision at no cost at every level. And so I would like some thinking partners around that, as well as I do need some thinking partners around connecting to some early childhood programs who are interested in reflective supervision, because we do have some resources to possibly make some connections for reflective supervision. So please email me. I also want to maybe just unveil a few simple logistics about reflective supervision, because some people might be like, I don't know that we have the time. I don't know that we have, I mean, isn't it pretty expensive? Truly, if anyone was to even partner or contract with a reflective supervisor, truly most reflective supervision spaces or reflective supervision sessions are about an hour, and they take place on a monthly basis. Many of them can take place virtually too. So even if you're thinking, wow, I think that I have a group of staff who could commit to 1 hour per month for reflective supervision and commit on a routine basis, what that group needs to look like is probably about no more than 6 professionals, and it needs to be a consistent group. So even if you have, let's say you have 12 people in your early childhood program, then that might look like 2 groups receiving reflective supervision. And there's more opportunity for just really creating that community with a smaller group. But I'd be happy to also connect with you. It really doesn't have to be a huge commitment that breaks the bank. It could really be something as simple as once a month for 1 hour a month for a group of 6 staff. And but also we have some resources that perhaps I can connect you to. So please send me a message. Thanks.
Liz, we really appreciate you sharing that and what that could potentially mean for anyone here who would like to explore that further, and the willing and also the invitation to brainstorm with you about possibilities. So thank you all so much. So our time is, we are now at 1 o'clock. And Lindsay, if you will share, we invite you all to complete an evaluation for us. This just kind of helps us, help steer us. So any constructive feedback you can offer about your experience is really helpful to Lindsay and I. And we really appreciate your engagement with us today. Thank you, Clarissa, Jose, and Ileana, Liz, and Katrina for participating today. And thank you everyone for your engagement.
Thank you all so much for all that you do to support little ones and their families and professionals each and every day. And we appreciate so much the community sharing that we had today. Have a wonderful Monday.
Thank you.
And imagine